Hello, everybody. As promised, I am starting a series of how to start new construction. So I have invited one of my favorite area builders, Travis Herman with Timber River Homes, to help us figure out how we do that. Welcome, Travis. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. It's great to have people who are willing to share their knowledge of the industry, and I appreciate your time on this extremely busy time of year. So do you want to give everybody a little bit of a brief background on who you are and what your company does?
You bet. As you mentioned, I'm Travis Herman with Timber River Custom Homes. I've been in the building industry for, going 17, 18 years now. Timber River Custom Homes, we started back in 2012. Myself and two other partners, Mike Tesh and Kathy Deegan. We're all three of us were working for a previous home builder at the time, but had a very different idea of what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do things, what our goals were. So we parted ways and formed our own company back then. Back 2012 was probably not the best time to be starting out in home building, but you learned a lot in a short amount of time.
Isn't that the truth? Well, thank you again. So you and I have sort of touched base behind the scenes on some of the most common questions that both of us, myself in the real estate end of things, with buyers who are just not having any luck finding anything in that mid 250s and up price point. And I get a lot of questions recently, or not even questions, but statements and doubt really that they will find anything, and have really started to explore, should we just build a home? And as you and I both know, it's not just as easy as, well, we'll just build. so,
Yeah.
I've invited you to help me kind of tackle, really from start to finish, a brief overview of where do you even start when you start going down this road of, we think we want to build, and somebody calls you up and says, I've heard you do a great job. What do we have to do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to preface with, there's no right or wrong way to approach this. It's just like probably buying an existing house. There's no right or wrong way. There's a lot of avenues you could take, but what my advice would be is, contact the builder, ask any questions, anything and everything that can come to mind. But the big things are going to be, where do you want to build? What areas do you want to be in? How much land are you looking for, et cetera. Right now, land is our hardest to find commodity when it comes to building. It's just like the existing home market out there. There's only so much of it out there. So finding out where you want to be, what kind of price point you want to be at for land, is another kind of important thing. But overall, where you want to be price point for the whole house too is important when you're looking for that land too, because you want to get what you want in a house, and you don't want to overspend on the land.
Yeah, that's a big piece of the budgeting piece, is something that there's a lot that goes into the building, but there's also a lot that goes into not just the purchase of the parcel of land, but if it needs a septic, if it needs a well, how deep does the well have to be? Because that costs more. What type of septic are you able to put in there if you can't hook up to a municipal sewer system or a municipal water system? Do you have to clear a spot and have some logging done, that kind of thing? There's a lot of granite in our area. So can you get a deep, a full foundation in ground, or do you have to have excavation costs? I mean, what else could you possibly,
Oh yeah, the sky's the limit, unfortunately, when it comes to things that could play a factor in the cost. How far back are you setting the house, your driveway length, all of that. All the things you mentioned are great topics as well, and that's where it comes back to, first and foremost, reaching out to a builder, even before you start looking at property, to get their opinions on properties that you're looking at, to see if it's going to be buildable, to see what types of septic systems are in the area, to see how deep the wells are in the area. Like I said, all the things that you brought up are very good things to keep in mind when looking at a piece of property.
The other thing that I think most people may not realize over the past 12 months that has really, really affected I guess there's two things. This could go both ways. Well, it does go both ways for you. Two major components of building right now are the cost of lumber and building materials, the availability of building materials, and the availability of qualified help, right?
Yes, yes. Two very, very big things, two very separate things, but both play a large role in the building process. Up until last year, cost of materials really weren't a huge concern, but as soon as COVID hit and things started shutting down there back in March, we ran into shortages, and the building industry never slowed up. So we are still dealing with massive shortages, and it just goes back to supply and demand. Demand is still high, supply is low, so prices through the roof still. Will we see prices on materials go down? We may see dips in certain materials, but overall prices are still going to trend upwards. And then to touch on the labor shortage, not only is there a labor shortage, there's a qualified labor shortage. You don't want to hire or have just anybody doing the work for you. You want somebody that is capable and knowledgeable enough to do it. And, we're seeing a fallout in that whole educational process too. A lot of us builders are getting heavily involved with the local schools and tech programs to try and entice more younger kids to get into these things, but I think that's going to be a struggle for a while.
I think you're right. It's definitely been a long time coming that we've had that gap. It's going to take some time to catch it up again, for sure. So back to the process then. We have somebody walking in your door, say, we think we know where we want to build. We know approximately the style of a home that we want to build. You start to talk about some of the site location topics that we just went through. What comes next?
So next would be kind of finding or pinpointing a floor plan. You mentioned if they come in the door, they kind of know the style they want. What I would do as a builder is I'd sit down with them, kind of ask them some questions to find out more specifics of what they're looking for. Once I get those specifics kind of compiled, I can then compile a group of plans, whether it's from our inventory or from an online inventory, that I can show them. Some of us builders do have in-house design capabilities, being one of them, where we can create something as well. Not every builder has that capability, but there are those services available out there elsewhere. But finding that floor plan and getting that floor plan kind of pinpointed to how they want it, what they want, and then from there moving on to the pricing stage, kind of feeling out what they want in that specific layout for finishes, etc.
That's a really good point about the design studio. There are so many folks. So we clearly know the difference, you and I, between spec building and custom building. So let's clear that up, because that's a big thing that most people, I find, don't have a clue, are very different.
Yes.
How would you define those things?
So, like you said, they're very different. It really has to be two different mindsets. Spec building, which is short for speculative, you are building a home with the anticipation that you're going to be selling it. So you are designing that house. You are picking out everything, the finishes, building that house, and then putting that up for sale, sell it. So with that, cost is going to be something that you keep in mind pretty heavily with that, because you don't want to build something that's going to cost a fortune and then you have to sell it for that plus more, which is going to be tough to do. So typically with spec homes, you're going to see things more economically streamlined, a little more value engineered to keep those costs in check so that you still can sell that for a profit, because let's face it, we're all in business and we need to make a profit to continue being in business. When it comes to custom home building, we are building homes specifically for people, for what they want and what they need. So they generally will come to us with the list, like we had talked earlier, of what they want in a house, what they want in a layout, coming to us with a budget. Always have a budget in mind. I always ask every customer when I sit down with them, what is the maximum number you want to stay under? Because if I don't know that number, I can't best tailor a home and finishes to what's going to fit that.
That's good information too. And that brings us back to that in-house design piece that you were talking about. So another surprise that I see people faced with is having to have a blueprint drawn of their custom home design because it's something that isn't a spec floor plan, that's a cookie cutter floor plan. So the costs of having an architect draft a floor plan, what are those these days?
So most designers and architects charge by the square foot. I would say on average right now, costs are running about 75 cents to $1 per square foot, your main level area. So if you have a 2,000 square foot home plan, it's going to be in that $1,500 to $2,000 range.
Which is something I don't think a lot of people think of.
They don't. And, like for us specifically with the in-house design capabilities, what we do is we charge up front for design services. But if they build with us, we then credit that towards the cost of the build.
Which makes perfect sense. How often do you run into folks having a hard time visualizing a 3D visualization of what they're asking you to do? Because again, we both know being in this industry that you can say you want, a window or a door in this particular spot, but you don't like conceptually understand that it's not engineering wise possible or from a flow standpoint, a good idea.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No.
It's pretty common. I think we're all very well aware that most people are not visual people. Most people can't look at a two-dimensional floor plan and picture what that is going to look like. With that, we do have, all of us builders do have access to 3D, capabilities, whether it's in-house or hiring those services out. We've had to do that a number of times because some people just literally cannot, do it without doing that. But, I would say in the last 10, 15 years, those capabilities have come a long way to where people can basically see their house before they even get started with the house.
I think it's some of my favorite technology. So as far as, the timelines that we were talking about earlier and the material delays and that kind of thing, what are you quoting people right now from we've picked everything, we know we're going to start to if you're moving in timeline?
So on a typical home, we used to operate on a 4 to 5 month schedule for, we'll say, your average 1,000 square foot. Obviously, in the last year, COVID has really wreaked havoc with lead times and product availability. Right now, I would say 5 to 6 months figuring, as long as you can get the majority of your selections made ahead of time. And that kind of brings me back to the beginning process. Once you find a floor plan and get it priced out, and then it comes time to making, selections for finishes, the earlier you can get those finishes made or selections made, the easier this building process is going to be. And, I always tell all of my customers, building is a stressful process. There's a lot of decisions to be made. It's a lengthy process. A lot of information to just take in. But the more you can do up front, the more enjoyable that process is going to be and the less stressful it's going to be. Now, it's not to say that you have to have every decision made, right from the get-go. For us building custom homes, it's just that, we want to make sure that it's a home that is exactly what you want. So if there's a change that you want made or something that you haven't quite decided on yet, that's not the end of the world. But just knowing that the more you can get selected up front, the more enjoyable the process is going to be.
I definitely agree. And there are literally thousands of decisions to be made, and that's not even exaggerating.
You are correct. And all of us builders, especially those of us that have been around for a number of years, I don't want to say we have it dialed down to a perfect system, but we've got pretty good systems in place for directing you on getting decisions made, when you should have decisions made by, and how to kind of break them down. I tell people, don't try to go out and pick everything all at once, because you're just going to overwhelm yourself doing that as well. And then you're going to be stressed out. So, with interior finishes, pick a specific thing, whether it's, your kitchen is your most important thing to you, start there. Start with your cabinets, and then pick your countertops, your flooring, your wall coverings, colors, etc., from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I know a lot of people use Pinterest boards and they do that for years ahead of time. And I think that's another really useful tool. I think it's super easy to, because the planning process can sometimes span a couple of years, and trends and, fashion design type details change over those years. It's easy for people to start mixing and matching some things.
Mhm.
So I think it's a really important point that you just made, in that because you've been doing this for so long and you have a team of experienced people who can really direct you into not making a really terrible mistake in picking something that goes completely against what your home is trying to accomplish in the long run. Um, I do think another piece that you just mentioned that is really valuable is exactly that, the value in having expertise behind you in a process that you've never been through, or even if you've been through it before. It's not like you build a house as the average person every other year, and everything in the industry changes so quickly and drastically, from pricing to materials used and technology in those materials, like for roofing and insulation and that kind of stuff, even wiring and light fixtures. I mean, they all change drastically year to year. So I think that my personal opinion is that there's just an enormous amount of value when you have a team like that to be able to really streamline the process.
Absolutely, and you touched on a lot of great things. Things are constantly evolving, constantly changing. Even building code changes are constantly changing. So trying to keep up on those, you obviously want somebody with the knowledge and the support system behind them to
Yeah,
work with.
right.
That's important when you're selecting a builder. So there goes my light. Hang on. It's a motion sensor. Sorry.
It's good to see you're energy efficient. I'm
That's right.
relying on solar
Yes.
power
Yeah.
today. I'm just really lucky that I have a lot of it. Okay, so here's the other
You're
thing.
lucky. I don't have a window in this room.
I am lucky. This is definitely a really fortunate office space, especially this winter. Holy moly! So, in our area, where do you feel we are in an average right now for a generic base model house final price? Let's just say the lot is not part of the equation.
Okay. So, and the simplest way to break it down is cost per square foot of main level area. Because that's generally the biggest question I get asked is, what does it cost per square foot?
Mhm.
Uh, and it is a loaded question. Every home is going to price out different. But what I've generally been telling people now is if you figure 185 to $200 per square foot starting out, that is going to give you a pretty good, comfortable range to work with. Can you go higher than that? Yes. Do a lot of homes price higher than that? Yes. Um, it's a good starting point. Can homes be built for less than that? Yes. It's getting harder and harder though. I don't want to tell people that, you can plan for $160 a square foot and then not have that be possible. So, when I meet with people, I like to be very realistic and err on the high side as well.
Mhm.
But if you plan for that range right now with today's current prices, you probably would be in a comfortable position starting.
Good to know. I definitely want to clarify that that is legitimately just the structure. That is not including outdoor landscaping or paving a driveway or, you know, a patio or a deck, those types of things. That's strictly just the build.
Yeah, and in that price range, you probably, depending upon the length of the driveway and the size of the deck, those probably could fall within that.
Okay.
Really, when we build a house, those things are all going to be included. But again, it depends on the parcel of property you find, how long your driveway is, things like that.
Okay. So ultimately, you can't build a house for everybody in our area. What should people be looking for to make sure that they're not getting taken by, a builder that's quoting them less than everybody else on the block?
So the big thing is trying to see, what I like to do is take people through our homes that are in progress, show them what we do, explain to them what we do, why we do it, what the benefits of that are. I try to leave them or have them leave meeting with me much more knowledgeable than when they showed up. And it's all about feeling comfortable with the builder too. So I think sitting down with a builder, kind of asking questions about their work, trying to see their work as well, and just getting a good feel for them. Relationships are a big part of everything. Whether it doesn't matter if it's a builder or a subcontractor, et cetera. I think that's one of the more important things.
I would agree. And communication is a huge, huge, huge piece of this process because, man, everything is so time sensitive when you're having to make last minute decisions because something isn't going according to plan. And somebody that can sit and explain what your options are and the benefits and not so great pieces to whichever direction you might want to take that decision. But having to really rely heavily on somebody who can communicate that clearly is a big deal. Anything else that you have from your end that would make really useful tips to somebody? Oh, I know one other thing I was going to ask you. I forgot to write it down, so I almost forgot to ask it. I get this question every once in a while as well. I know people in the trades, how much of a house can we work on with our own, doing stuff on our own to help save some money?
Yes. So every builder is going to have a different response to that question. Us personally, we have always allowed, if a customer comes to us and knows somebody that works in the trades and wants to use them, we've always allowed that. Building a custom home, we're building a house for those people. It's their house. And if they have labor that they want to use on that house, we're always open to it. I always caution people that our set group of subcontractors that we work with, they know our schedule, they know our process, they know what we require and what we don't allow in our homes. So anytime we bring somebody new into that mix, it's a learning curve. The schedules generally run a little longer when it comes to that. A lot more communication is needed in those instances, thus taking more time. We're always open to it though. Many times it's opened the door to new great subcontractors and suppliers for us in doing that. So
that's a good point. Anything that you would say are like the top 3 things to really kind of stay away from, or hazards that you should really consider?
Don't shop strictly on price. With houses, as with everything else out there, you get what you pay for. So if price is your number one thing, I think building may not be the right route for you, because I don't think you're going to be happy with your end product. Researching layouts and what you like and don't like in a house, I think is important to come prepared with, knowing what you want basically, and knowing what you can spend. Don't overspend, and make sure you're upfront and honest with your builder right from the get-go, because that is the only way that they can best prepare you and provide you with what you're looking for.
All good tips, especially that you get what you pay for.
Yes.
That's true in real estate regardless. No,
it's with everything in life I've found, it doesn't matter what you're buying, if you're buying strictly on cost, you literally are getting what you pay for. So
very true. Well, I think this has all been super helpful. Do you want to leave the people with some contact information if they have any follow-up questions for you?
Yeah, you bet. Easiest way to get a hold of us, our office number, 715-359-9767. Otherwise, another easy way to touch base with us is via our website. We do have a contact us option on there, timberriverhomes.com.
Perfect. I thank you again so much for being able to clarify some of the really hidden tips and tricks in this end of the industry, especially as we're seeing more people not be able to find what they're looking for. And really just grateful for your knowledge. So thank you for doing this. And
you bet. Thank you for having me.
Doing a parade home this year.
We are.
Ooh, stay tuned.
Just one.
Well, we'll let you get going. We know you have a lot to do, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Sounds great. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.